All right, so thank you for tuning in to Chomp the Bit. I'm Kyle Edwards, of course. This episode, I'm going to take a look at the NBA, but more specifically, the NBA trade deadline that's coming up. We're starting to hear some rumors and some stuff. Now, we have had some trades already, like, what was it, a couple of weeks ago? You know, Cam Reddish going to the Knicks from the Hawks. And I feel like it's put the focus on certain teams to see, you know, how active they'll actually be. Now, the two biggest teams that people have been looking at are the Celtics and the Lakers. Because we know that with the Lakers, it's, you know, they brought in a bunch of names and it hasn't worked out. You know, they're currently, 2 games below 500. And then with the Celtics, they were at 500. Both teams have dealt with some injuries and, you know, other circumstances. But for the most part, both teams have underachieved, at least according to the analysts. You know, a lot of people thought the Lakers were going to be, you know, top of the Western Conference, trying to get back to another title, all that. I didn't buy into the roster. I'll talk about that in a little bit. The Celtics, coming off of last year, which was a disappointment. I believe this year they're looked at as probably a 5-6 type seed. They're 8th right now, so yes, the play's been inconsistent, but the pieces are there for them to definitely improve their play, and I'll kind of talk about how they can do that. But first part of this episode, I wanted to focus on, I think there are some other teams that should be looked at, you know, because there's some teams that are kind of sitting there in the middle of each conference where they've had a group together for a little bit now, and it's time to really wonder, you know, should they break it up, add to it, what's going on? So like I said, a lot of focus, Celtics, Lakers, but I think there's other teams that need to be looked at. One is Portland. Now with Portland, Damien Lillard, I believe it looks like he's not going to play for the rest of the year, but I don't think that should change any of their plans. Probably they would look to move Damien Lillard, maybe, but we've seen Lillard and McCollum as their dynamic duo. Hasn't really panned out. I kind of think in this era of, you know, positionless basketball, where a lot of teams just put, you know, an athletic group of 5 out there, they switch everything. I think being led by 2 kind of smallish guards isn't the formula. To me, the best way to build your team is to have, you know, build around 2 wing players. So like your 3 and your 4. And then, you know, you get, probably like a 2 and a 3. Then you get the right point guard with those 2. Get like a 4 and a 5 that can space the floor a little bit. And there you go. So I think Portland is definitely a team that should break it up. I don't know exactly what McCollum's an interesting case because I'm not really sure how he's viewed around the league. You know, he's a guy who, if he gets hot, he can be a really deadly scorer. But then there's other times where in big moments you kind of forget he's out there on the court at times. And I don't think he's the guy who can really be your number 1 option and be a championship team. So, yeah, so if I'm Portland, I wouldn't exactly add to the group because I don't think there's really a point. Because I feel like, like I said, with Lillard and McCollum, their ceiling is probably second round, if that. Another team, I think Sacramento. You look at Sacramento, they've had Buddy Hield, De'Aaron Fox. They had Harrison Barnes, who I feel like you hear his name every year. They have Marvin Bagley. Who else? Those are probably the main names there. I definitely think that this is a team, something needs to be done. I'm pretty sure the names that you'll probably hear the most will be Barnes and Hield. If I'm Sacramento, I'm not moving De'Aaron Fox. That's a piece that I would build around. He's only 24. With Hield and Barnes, they're both 29, looking at 30. Bagley, I'd probably keep Fox and Bagley, work around that, move out Barnes and Hield. So maybe those are two names that get moved. There was the report that Sacramento was kind of going in on Ben Simmons, but I believe the report earlier today or yesterday was that Philly's asking price was too much for Sacramento, so I guess they're backing off of that now. Now Ben Simmons did go there because I said with Ben Simmons, I'm starting to get starting to make the assumption that I think Simmons probably would perform better in a kind of a smaller market because he's in Philly, hasn't worked out. Philly's a big market, a lot of pressure. I feel like Simmons, for him to thrive, needs to be kind of a low-key team to go to. Sacramento, yeah, they have a good fan base, but I feel like that's a team where he'd probably be able to do his thing, wouldn't have to shoot, and they wouldn't care because you have Fox to score, Halliburton, Terrence Davis. So they would just need Simmons to be a facilitator for those guys. And also Philly, it looks like Philly's not going to play Ben Simmons anymore. What's the point of just keeping him around? Now, pick a deal, stick with it. So, Sacramento is a team I think that should be selling some of their pieces. Another team, look out for. That's probably the two teams in the West. Spurs, maybe. With the Spurs, you're only looking at Murray. But I feel like with Popovich, he's still kind of in the rebuild process. So I might give the Spurs group another year. But by next year, around trade deadline time, if they're where they are now, where they're well below 500, doesn't look like they could even get to the play-in, then you start making decisions there. In the East, I think you got to look at the Knicks. Knicks came in with a lot of expectations after making the playoffs last year. And then now this year, they've kind of regressed back to where they've been for most of these years, at least recently. They're in 12th in the East. They're only like a game and a half out of 10th to get into the play-in, but a lot of people were buying into them taking a step forward after last year. Although I always thought it was kind of a product of last year being, so manipulated by COVID, and the Knicks were able to kind of find their way through all of that and, make a playoff series. Now, they did lose in the first round, which I think was kind of a sign of, the talent wasn't exactly that good. I know the Knicks probably love this guy, but Julius Randle is a piece that I'm watching because on the Knicks, Julius Randle is the number one option, but once again, Julius Randle is not a number one option type guy. If you want to win a title, he plays. So he's a power forward type. He plays too slow, and and he's also like ball heavy. So in order for him to score, you kind of have to give him the ball, stand around, get out of his way, and hope he breaks his defender down. There's been a lot of nights where Randall's been off, and the Knicks have looked bad. Yeah, when Randall has it going, the Knicks are fine, but he's not the type of guy you can rely, upon to be on night after night after night after night. So the Knicks are in an interesting position. It's either they bring in a top dog to move Randall down to the second option, or they just move Randall out and reshuffle. I don't know who they could bring in at this point to, push Randall down to the 2. I don't think that name is out there right now. And I don't see the Knicks turning around and, making some second half run to the top half of the East. I don't see it. So actually outside of Randall, so I guess if they decide to continue down this road with Randall being the guy, maybe the offseason bringing somebody with him, then Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier are probably the 2 names that could be moved. Now, they did just get him in the offseason, but it just hasn't worked. And unfortunately, coming off of both of their stints in Boston, I don't know how much you can get in the trade market for those 2. But at this point, it could be something where it's just addition by subtraction, getting them out, getting whatever you can for it, and see where it goes. The Hawks, another team like the Knicks, except for the Hawks made the East Conference Finals last year, which I didn't buy into the roster with them either. Look where they are now. They're in 11th. They already moved Cam Reddish. They got Knox back. I don't think he's played. They're probably in a wait and see mode because that's how Atlanta is. So the next week or so, if they stumble, expect to see their name pop up in trade rumors a lot more. If they go on a little streak, they may ride it out, but if they do falter, you're looking at guys like Gallinari they can move, Bogdanovic, maybe Capella, although his deal might be too much. But Bogdanovic and Gallinari are 2, reasonable candidates to get moved there. I would say Washington, but Washington would just be on Bradley Beal watch. I feel like that doesn't get resolved until after the season. Toronto's an interesting one, because Toronto's been going with Van Vliet and Siakam. What else was that? Like Anunoby, Boucher, who's kind of new to the group, but it'd probably take a special deal, but I wouldn't be shocked if Toronto moved on from like a Siakam, who, his rookie year and all that, he was fine, but he seemed to really have tailed off since then. Right now they're 23 and 23 in the 9th spot, but I don't know. I see where some people are fascinated by Siakam. I'm just not that impressed with him. I'm not sure like who he reminds me of or anything like that, but I feel like he's a guy who's a classic 2-3 option on a good team, not a 1. Even in Toronto, you're probably looking at Van Vliet as your first option, but what's he like, 5'9"? So I think it's tough to win that way. Yeah, they got their title a couple of years ago, but they also had Kawhi Leonard, so. Yeah, so those are the other teams I'd see outside of the Celtics and the Lakers. But now, to get into those 2, I guess I'll start with, since I'm a Celtics fan, I'll start with the Lakers. Interesting enough, with these 2 are the most storied franchises, and now they're a focal point of the trade deadline. But the Lakers, here's the issue. as we hear every year, when a LeBron James team doesn't do well, there's always pointing fingers at the talent that was brought in. I mean, we all know who requests these names to come in, LeBron. So the fact that he somehow manages to slide under any of the blame every year that doesn't work, it's fascinating to me. This mix, they brought in Russell Westbrook, who when they brought him in, I said, if you're going to bring in Westbrook, you can't put him and LeBron on the floor together. What have they done? They've been starting together, and Westbrook's been the one who's looked terrible. Now, we always knew Westbrook couldn't shoot, but when you have LeBron who likes to get to the hoop, Westbrook can't clog the lane, so Westbrook's having to stand on the perimeter, and he finds himself in situations where the only thing he really can do is try to get into the mid-range and shoot, and we've seen some bad misses. They brought in Carmelo. Lakers' biggest issue defensively, especially on the perimeter, you're bringing in Carmelo. He doesn't help you there, and if he's not shooting well, he gives you literally nothing on the court. I know people love Carmelo, but be honest with yourself. They brought in Trevor Ariza, which he missed early part of the season, and all we kept hearing from the announcers is, "Well, wait till Trevor Ariza comes back." Trevor Ariza's like 37 or something right now, 36. I don't know, but he's an older guy. That doesn't help you. They have Avery Bradley, who's probably the best perimeter defender, but Avery Bradley's not what he was earlier in his career, at least defensively. So that's been kind of an issue. Anthony Davis gets hurt. Shocker there. But if he's not on the court, he can't help you defensively either. So the main issue with the Lakers is, because of their veteran status, they're old, they'll struggle against athletic teams, one, and two, really good shooting teams, because like I said, Lakers perimeter defense, non-existent. For the most part, if the Lakers win games at this point, it's because the other team either had a poor shooting night, which allowed the Lakers, get in transition and score that way, because that's their best offense, or it was probably like a slow, plodding type team that probably got careless with the ball. Lakers got into transition, win the game that way. So whether they do it this trade deadline or in the offseason, they're going to need to unload some of these senior citizens on this team, and they have to get younger. The ownership there needs to stop listening to LeBron for off-season moves, trade, all that kind of stuff. I don't know why these teams don't realize LeBron is a GM, not that good. If you just need LeBron to go out there, make the pieces happen and play, he's good. But when he starts picking the players on the team, usually a telltale sign that midway through the year, it's not going to work. And then finger pointing happens and all that kind of stuff. I mean, are the Lakers fixable this year? I don't see it. Because for the simple fact that Phoenix, good shooting team, has some youth, a little bit more athletic. Golden State, great shooting team. Lakers will struggle with them. Memphis, young, athletic. Lakers would struggle with them. Utah, they'd probably be fine because Utah, outside of Donovan Mitchell, I guess Rudy Gobert a little bit, aren't exactly the most athletic team. And shooting can be up and down with them. Dallas is pretty athletic. I do worry about their shooting at times. Denver. I mean, I don't know about Denver. Well, I think Lakers struggle with Denver because Denver has perimeter guys who can break down the defense. So yeah, there's a lot of teams in the West that the Lakers would struggle against. So I'm not buying into them. Like I said, it could change if their play gets turned up or whatever. But yeah, biggest issues in Lakers: not enough youth and perimeter defense being non-existent. Like just watch a couple of Lakers games. You'll see, guys with wide open threes. You'll see defensively, a lot of the Lakers players just sagging into the paint. They're just leaving guys open the perimeter. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have a really good shooting team, that backfires on them. If you're not that good at shooting and you're having an off night, then it looks better for them. All right, so now to my Celtics. So here's the thing. Been hearing kind of the biggest story with the Celtics is that Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum are really good young players, bordering on great. Probably Tatum's probably more in the great category than Jaylen Brown is right now, but Jaylen Brown's getting there. Everybody was looking to see, can those two coexist? I think it's a stupid argument to begin with, because usually when that argument's made, they're talking about Jaylen Brown needs to go. Here's my thing. Jaylen Brown's a guy who came into the league as just an athletic slasher. Each year, he's evolved his game. He improved his ball handling, although it's still an issue at times. But I have no doubt that he won't continue to get better at that. I think when he came into the league, he was a pretty good mid-range player. I would say that he's gotten a little better at that as well. Perimeter, forget that when he first came in. Now he's respectable from the perimeter. So I don't think I'm moving on from Jaylen Brown, who's showing the work ethic, the mentality to always get better. Tatum, I know the past couple of years, a lot of people attack Tatum for settling on the perimeter too much. He'll sometimes get into a bad habit where he does that, but I've noticed this year that he does go to the rim a lot more, at least try to. It is tough when he feels like he has the perimeter game going. Yes, he'll fall in love with it, but usually in those games, he's also so good at it that it works. So I feel like you keep the two together, which it seems like Brad Stevens has all the plans are to, bring in a third guy to complement those two. Now, if they're stuck with the same group that they have right now, I think. So for me, they're teetering on the line of being a good team and a disappointment, out of the play-in types thing. Now, recently, I've seen, Jason and Jaylen be more trusting in their teammates, which I think is a good thing. Now, they've had some games where those others, as Shaq would call them, have missed shots. But there's going to be nights like that. I'm, hoping Ime, Jaylen, Jason still see the benefit in that type of play and continue on with it, because I think eventually it'll level out and, those guys will start knocking down shots consistently. And at that point, I think the Celtics are a pretty dangerous team. One thing that I don't think I've heard a lot of people talk about that if it does happen, I believe will just unlock something within this team is Robert Williams. So right now, Robert Williams is your classic rim-to-rim player. Defensively, you want him around the paint because he can affect a lot of shots in the paint. He's a great rebounder. Like I said, shot blocker. Problem is, offensively, when he's on the court, it's basically pick and roll with him rolling to the hoop, looking for the lob. One little thing if Robert Williams was ever to add it to his game would help out immensely with the Celtics is the mid-range. Now, I've seen him shoot a mid-range shot. He's got good form. Yeah, he's seems to be capable in doing it. I just think if he can get that going, then it would help out Tatum and Brown so much more, because a lot of times if Tatum and Brown break down the defender, since Rob Williams is seemingly only comfortable catching lobs on offense, he's usually standing there around the paint, which then brings his defender into the play. So if you're going up against a good team with a good shot blocking low post presence, that can be an issue. So if Ron Williams is able to, pull away from the hoop, not all the way to the 3-point line or anything like that, but let's say it'd be like 15 feet away and in, I think that would do so much for this team. If they are looking to trade some pieces and you want to get a third star to go with Brown and Tatum, I would say go backcourt with I want to say a point guard. But another little variable in that is that Marcus Smart, who's the current starting point guard, kind of by default, has that ability in him, because we've seen flashes of it where Smart will play in a game, you have a great stat line where you see the points there, you see rebounds there, you see assists, which is key, and you see efficiency. What I do like about Smart is he's, a point guard who likes to push the ball. At times he can get himself into trouble with careless turnovers, ill-advised 3-point shots. We know Marcus Smart struggles. I do think what he brings to the team outweighs those incompletions. I mean, not incompletions. Those, you can basically say like incomplete trips down the floor where, he takes too long to get him in a set, or, careless turnover, that type of stuff. I'm sure Schroeder's a name that's going to be heard because he's playing on a contract that's clearly below his value. He's obviously looking to get his payday next year, and the Celtics won't have cap space or anything like that to offer that to him. So if you offload him now, you don't have to worry about losing him in the offseason for nothing. So I feel like it's probably a sure bet Schroeder gets moved. And as I said, Brad Stevens has made it known that he wants to create opportunities for the young guys in Neesmith, Langford, and Pritchard. So you got to clear some of the guys in front of them. Are the Celtics salvageable? Yes. Biggest thing, consistent perimeter shooting, and they're fine. So, like I said, with trade deadline coming up, I have a feeling that this trade deadline is going to be kind of active. It's a little bit slow right now, but I think it's going to pick up over the next week or so. But let me know what you think. You can let me know who your team is in the NBA and whether you want them to be active in terms of buyer or seller, or you want them to stay put. And do you think it's going to be an active trade deadline? But yeah, so thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Just to let you know, next episode I will talk about, I'll either do the NFL coaching carousel, because we're starting to see some names pop up. We've actually seen some coaching positions filled, so I want to talk about that. Also have conference championship weekend to talk about. Might talk NBA again maybe early next week. Probably look at some of the rumors that are floating out there, see what makes sense, see what seems ridiculous, and kind of break it down that way. Then from there, figure it out. There's always something to talk about, so make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. Follow me on Twitter, Chompin' Podcast. That way when I drop new episodes, you'll know right away. Like, leave a review, leave a comment, do all that. It'll definitely help me out a lot because, like I said, I'm doing this to, bring my opinions on sports and all that to you. So any critiques, anything like that, tell me what you like about it. Like I said, helps out a lot. So with that, be safe out there. God bless. Catch you next episode. All right, I'm out.